So, 100,000 subscribers. As I've said when I had like 10,000, this is beyond my wildest expectations. Like, I can barely articulate the feelings. But you probably don't care about that. Right now, you care about what I decided to do for it. It's something a little different, although I've been planning to do this for a while, actually. People generally want to know what the worst stuff I've ever seen is, and sometimes it's hard to judge. What I've done is decide to make a few top 10 lists. Top 10 worst cartoons of each respective decade. We'll start with the 2000s, and we'll work our way backwards. I'm definitely going to do the 90s, probably going to do the 80s, not sure about the 70s, and before then it's kinda complicated. A few rules though. Number 1, I can't just say certain seasons of a show. It's either the entire show or none of it, unless the show spans multiple decades. For example, if I chose SpongeBob for this list, I'd have to include the entire show from 2000 to 2009. Another rule, the show must have at least 13 episodes fully produced and aired, to prevent weird and obscure things in drop pilots, and also stopping my number 1 choice of adult parody cartoons to be completely fucking obvious. Also, no internet animation. But, I do not like the 2000s decade for animation. Actually, that's not far enough. It might be my least favorite decade of animation of all time, only rivaled by the 70s. Yes, it was home to some of my favorite animated series of all times, but a lot of my most hated. From 2000 to 2004, things were actually pretty good, but after that, the quality of cartoons in general dropped hard until at least 2008, probably 2010. In between that time, the only really good show to watch was probably Avatar. I've already talked about how Nickelodeon fell from grace around this time, but Cartoon Network was equally bad, throwing up shit like reality TV and poorly planned out game shows designed to pander to kids. All the networks were sticking to their cash cow franchises like SpongeBob or Johnny Test, and had very little resources to give to anything else. And then there was the rise of Flash Animation. Flash Animation was a tool that allowed cartoons to be made a lot quicker and a lot more cheaply. Some shows did amazing things with it. Most did not. And, I'm not even touching movies for this one. Yeah, of the 3 decades that I've been alive, this has definitely been my least favorite in terms of animation. I will say right now, though, we are currently doing a whole lot better in the 2010s, even with a dud here and there. The crap isn't as common, or even as bad as it was here. If you're ready, we're counting down the top 10 worst cartoons of the 2000s decade. Let me get this out of the way right this second before you do anything serious. SpongeBob SquarePants is not going to be on this list. This is for a couple of reasons. Number 1, if I chose it, I'd have to include most of the good episodes too. And number 2, most of the worst episodes of SpongeBob aired in 2010 or later. I mean, A Pal for Gary aired January 2nd, 2010, if you want to judge things that way. And considering that I've been around the block, it has come to my attention that there are many, many worse things than SpongeBob. Even modern SpongeBob. What I'm saying is fight the real enemy. They say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, but flat-out ripping off is the sincerest form of insult. Remember when I reviewed Bubsy from like forever ago? Well, the character was played by Rob Paulsen, a very talented and famous voice actor. I bring him up because this is the role that he hated doing the most, more than Bubsy. And yeah, I can totally say it with this annoying protagonist. The only reason that this show is number 10 is because it's the only one that I could sit through for more than 1 episode at a time. I'm used to bad SpongeBob. And almost everything on this list is also soulless crap. At least this one has some fucking energy. So we have an in-universe annoying character whose main body type is a simple geometric shape. The show has a weird concept that didn't really come out of logic. There is also an arrogant character who seems to like peace and quiet and is constantly annoyed by the main character's antics, and frequently suffers pain and abuse because of it. Oh, and in one episode, the main character inflates to solve a problem. There's also another side character who is really exceptionally tiny. Oh, and he's got a couple of friends who are really, really stupid. And that's just on the concept level of the show. I've seen every single joke on the show in SpongeBob in one form or another. Oh, but I take that back. There is some originality. Instead of 1 really stupid character, we get 2. I don't know why networks keep trying this, but it's generally not a good idea to have a protagonist where the lives of everyone else would be better if they just didn't exist. Yes, SpongeBob delved into this eventually, but that wasn't the original concept. From my experience, these shows never work unless the main character constantly loses like an Ed, Edd and Eddy. It's not funny to watch one guy continually ruin other people's lives. Beyond that, none of the characters that aren't direct rehashes from SpongeBob have a strong personality. They're often just given one solitary trait and do nothing else. Whenever Fred is on stage, you know that something bad is going to happen. And all too often, you know exactly what it is, because this show doesn't have a creative bone in its body. Look, if you want to watch Fred's shtick here, go watch SpongeBob. It's better paced, more original, and better comedy. Hey look, you want my opinion of the show without the rhyming gimmick? This is one of the most ill-formed cartoons ever made. It does literally everything wrong. Every character is annoying. The bad guy always wins every single time. The good guy isn't even that good in comparison. The plots do nothing new and original. There's random bouts of gross out. The character designs are lazy, and they only stand out because of that stupid line gimmick. The plots are stupid. Have you noticed anything? Yeah, I've laid these complaints about so many other shows before this because nothing about the show is original. It doesn't even fail in a unique or original way. For me to review the show, I had to do something different, or else I'd just be repeating myself and the review would be useless. When I rewatched each of the shows to the list, I wrote a bunch of notes. Every note I wrote about this show basically amounted to every character is unlikable for the sake of being unlikable. The only remotely likable character constantly loses. The voice acting is bad. That's not even bringing up the episode I reviewed with that weird drug allegory. Another episode is about Lucien having a crush, and it starts by the teacher reading about how a Black Widow eats their mate. Does it have anything to do with the episode, tone or otherwise? Not at all. Guys, I think the show wanted to be Invader Zim, but it's not. Random secondary characters dropping from the sky. But I've said that before. But like I said, it's not even good at failing. It's not just bad. It's boringly bad. Funny story. The owners of Pixel Pinky actually copyrighted claims to my original review. I fought it and I got it back up because they would have to sue me in America and they're an Australian company. But still, if this video goes anywhere, you'll know why. Unfortunately for the owners of Pixel Pinky, this show just had to make the list. You think that Johnny Test is lazy? You haven't seen Pixel Pinky. This is the laziest piece of animation I've ever seen. Okay, that's not true. But I'm pretty sure that this show came out on an experiment to figure out exactly how little effort you needed to put into a cartoon to get it on television. This was animated in Go Animate. You'd have to break any other application to get it to animate this fucking bad. The characters are bland. The only trait that Nina has is that she's into basketball. The plots are ripped from Fairly OddParents, as is the concept, but the show is even more formulaic. Nina knows that using magic is stupid, or she's too stupid to realize that she can use magic, then she uses magic when she figures it out, or the plot demands her to get stupid enough to use the magic, and the magic always backfires because Pixel Pinky interprets it wrong. Besides cloning, there's an episode where Nina wants to get taller. She becomes a giant. Every plot is like that in some way, shape, or form, and it's on the most overdone plot types. The other characters, you got the typical hippie, the typical mom, the typical best friend, the typical love interest, the typical bully, who started bullying Nina because she didn't have a fucking cell phone. Ha ha ha. Most of the shit on this list is just lazy, generic, and soulless in order to make a quick profit. But this is the laziest cash-in that I've ever seen. I do not believe that humans with a functioning brain ever considered the idea that on its own that can make a profit. On the bright side, this show has one of the best messages I've ever seen. Anyone can get their fucking show on television. You don't even need to put in any effort into it. Tony Hawk it later. What? Like what? Da Boom Crew is one of the most unbearable shows I've ever seen. It's top 10 bad. I'm not even kidding here. I know what you're saying. Only 4 episodes were ever aired, so this show can't be on the list. Nope. All 13 episodes were actually aired on television. In England, because it was originally cancelled 4 episodes in the United States. I'd say that the characters speak in outdated slang, but it's more like they're speaking in gibberish. No one ever talked like this. Not kids, not rappers, not aliens badly misinterpreting human culture. Yo, you better get out of my house before I Jackie Chan your ass and make you Adam Sandler this place. And you think that's better, I'll Sean Connery your house and Charlie Sheen it up. Does that sound incomprehensible? That's because it fucking is. Half of the dialogue is in this weird alien slang, and the other half is in puns. All the characters are pretty much tokens. The exact same token, except the girl. She's a token nerd. And you'd think that the makers of the Proud Family would have a different character type than the token black character. That's literally all of the main characters except for the nerd. Instead of talking in slang, she talks in technobabble. Also, in the first episode, there's this alien who's pretty much afraid of everything and is constantly running away. The creators thought it would be a brilliant and progressive move to give him a French accent. So, how are the stories? Does this look familiar in the slightest? Yeah, all the stories pretty much rip off Samurai Jack. But instead of a heroic samurai, we've got 4 kids who can't speak realistic English. The actual premise behind the show is that the kids were hit by a power surge and are thrown into their video game, or an alternate reality that looks exactly like their video game. I repeat, they coded the fucking game, yet things still manage to surprise them all the time. And there are things about that universe that they don't know. When I started out this list, I knew what was going to be my number 1 immediately. It was so painfully bad that I stopped watching it the first time 4 minutes in. And then I watched this show, The Nutshack, which proved to be even worse. Let's start off with the fact that the theme song is the worst that I've heard in my life, which is always a great start. The animation is worse than Pixel Pinky's. At least Pixel Pinky could claim to have some kind of style. The characters here look like they were cut out from various other sources and just copy-pasted into a clusterfuck of design. Right now, I don't want to do much of anything. This show is fucking horrible! You know what? No, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to watch some Steven Universe or Regular Show. Maybe some Rick and Morty or Friendship is Magic, and be glad that this decade is over! Honestly, if this list did anything, it helped me appreciate how far we have come since this decade. If you remember, in 2009, Cartoon Network, the Cartoon Network, decided not to air any new cartoons but 7 live-action shows because they thought animation was dead. Once upon a time, 90s kids did have a point, because all of this soulless crap on this list. It may not have been the worst point in animation history, but it was a notoriously bad one. How did we get out? I have no fucking clue. We got Adventure Time, and then everything seemed to start improving. We got Gravity Falls, Over the Garden Wall, Wander Over Yonder, and we're still getting good stuff with things like Star vs. the Forces of Evil or Sonic Boom. And I hear that Harvey Beaks is pretty good too. But doesn't this decade have crap? Of course it does. The 90s had crap too. The 80s had crap. The 70s had crap. The 60s had crap. It's just the landscape is nothing like what it once was 10 years ago. While the 2000s may have been my least favorite decade of animation, the 2010s, if they keep on this track, they could easily be my favorite. And combined with the ease of access to get whatever episodes of these shows I want, with things like Amazon and Netflix, and the crazy things people are doing with the medium on the internet, there really has been no better time to be a fan of animation than the 2010s.